I had been planning this moment for weeks. Sitting in the bathroom, listening to Thomas whisper his instructions to Patricia, I felt a cold satisfaction wash over me. They had no idea that I knew everything. Every detail of their plan, every lie they had told me, every document they thought I had signed blindly. "While I keep her busy, you go change the locks at her house," Thomas whispered to his mother. His voice carried that same fake sweetness he had been using on me for months. "She trusts you completely. She'll never suspect anything." If only he knew. I had stopped trusting them the moment I found those forged papers hidden in his office 3 weeks ago. Papers with my signature that I had never signed. Documents transferring ownership of my grandmother's house. Bank forms giving them access to my accounts. They had been so careful, so clever, but not careful enough. "I have the new keys ready," Patricia replied, her voice filled with the same excitement I had heard when she thought I was asleep last Tuesday. "Once we change the locks, she won't be able to get back in. The house will be ours." I almost laughed. They were walking straight into the trap I had spent weeks preparing. While they thought they were playing me, I had been recording every conversation, photographing every document, building a case that would destroy them both. "Perfect," Thomas continued. "I'll take her out for a long birthday lunch, maybe shopping after. That should give you plenty of time to change all the locks and get the paperwork ready." The paperwork. They had no idea that every document they thought was real was actually a fake I had prepared with my lawyer. The real papers were safely locked away in a bank vault, along with recordings of their private conversations and photos of Thomas with his girlfriend. Yes, I knew about her too. I knew about everything. "What about the neighbors?" Patricia asked. "What if they see me?" "Tell them Elena asked you to change the locks for security reasons. They all know you're her mother-in-law. They trust you just like she does." The neighbors. My sweet elderly neighbors who had already agreed to call the police the moment they saw Patricia at my house. The same neighbors who had been watching Thomas come and go with strange women while I was at work. They had been trying to tell me for months, but I had to discover the truth myself. "She's so naive." Patricia laughed, and I felt that familiar anger burn in my chest. She actually believes we care about her. Poor little Elena, always so trusting, always so grateful for our love and support. Naive. That's what they thought. That's what they had always thought. Poor, stupid Elena, who inherited a beautiful house and needed their guidance. Elena, who was so desperate for family that she would believe anything they told her. They had no idea that I had been recording this conversation, just like I had recorded dozens of others. "That's what makes this so easy," Thomas replied. "She signed those papers last month without even reading them. She thinks they're just insurance documents, but they give us legal access to everything." Those papers. The ones I had pretended to sign while actually signing completely different documents. The ones that would give them access to nothing while providing me with evidence of their fraud. My lawyer had been very thorough in helping me prepare the trap. "The timing is perfect too," Patricia added. "With her birthday today, she'll be emotional and distracted. She won't notice anything unusual." Emotional and distracted. I was emotional, but not in the way they expected. I was angry, furious, but also strangely calm. Today was the day their lies would finally catch up with them. Today was the day I would stop being their victim and become their worst nightmare. And tomorrow, when she tries to get into her house and can't, we'll act just as surprised as she is, Thomas said. "We'll comfort her, help her figure out what happened, maybe suggest she stay with us while we sort everything out." Tomorrow. They thought they had tomorrow. They thought they had weeks, months, maybe years to slowly steal everything from me. They had no idea that in about 2 hours they would both be in handcuffs. "By then it will be too late," Patricia finished. "The house will legally be ours, and there won't be anything she can do about it." "Too late," I almost smiled. It was already too late, but not for me. It was too late for them. They had made their choice months ago when they decided to destroy the woman who had loved them both unconditionally. Now they would face the consequences. "I should go now," Patricia said. "The sooner I change those locks, the sooner we can move forward with the rest of the plan." "Yes, go. Go straight to my house where Detective Rodriguez and his team were waiting. Go try to change locks that had already been changed by a real locksmith yesterday. Go discover the surprise I had left for you in my living room. Be careful," Thomas warned. "And remember, if anyone asks, Elena requested this for security reasons. You're just being a helpful mother-in-law." A helpful mother-in-law. The woman who had spent 6 years pretending to love me while planning to steal everything my grandmother had worked for. The woman who had held me while I cried about wanting children, knowing she was going to make sure I lost everything that mattered to me. "Don't worry about me," Patricia replied. "I've been planning this longer than you have. I know exactly what to do." Longer than he had. That confirmed what I had suspected. This wasn't Thomas's idea. Patricia had been the mastermind from the beginning. She had probably been planning this since the day Thomas introduced us, maybe even before that. I heard footsteps moving toward the front door. Patricia was leaving. She was walking straight into the trap I had spent weeks preparing. In 30 minutes, she would be calling Thomas in a panic. In an hour, they would both realize that their victim had become their hunter. The front door closed. Patricia was gone. Now it was just Thomas and me, and he had no idea that I knew everything. No idea that I had been 3 steps ahead of him for weeks. No idea that his loving, trusting wife had become his worst enemy. "Elena?" Thomas called out sweetly. "Are you okay in there, birthday girl? Your mother just left to run a quick errand, but she'll be back soon. Are you ready for your special birthday lunch?" My mother. The woman who was about to discover that her prey had teeth. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror and smiled. Today was my birthday. Today was the day I gave myself the best present I could imagine. Justice. "Just a minute," I called back, my voice perfectly calm. "I'll be right out." I opened the bathroom door and walked toward my lying husband, ready to give the performance of my life. I met Thomas on a rainy Tuesday in October, 6 years ago. I was sitting in a coffee shop, sketching designs for a client, when this handsome man with perfect teeth and expensive shoes approached my table. He said my artwork was beautiful. He said I was beautiful. After months of loneliness following my grandmother's death, his attention felt like sunshine breaking through clouds. "I'm Thomas," he had said, sliding into the seat across from me without invitation. "And you're the most interesting woman in this entire place." I should have seen the red flag in how easily he invaded my space, but I was 26, grieving and desperately lonely. My grandmother had been my only family, and her death 3 months earlier had left me completely alone in the world. When Thomas smiled at me, I felt less alone for the first time in months. Our first date was perfect. He took me to an expensive restaurant, ordered wine I couldn't pronounce, and listened to every word I said like it was the most important thing he had ever heard. He asked about my work, my dreams, my family. When I told him about inheriting my grandmother's house, his eyes lit up with what I thought was genuine interest. "She must have loved you very much," he said, reaching across the table to touch my hand. "A Victorian house in that neighborhood? That's incredible. You're so lucky." Lucky. That word should have warned me, but I was too busy falling in love with his attention, his charm, his apparent fascination with everything about me. He made me feel special in a way I had never felt before. Within 2 weeks, he was staying at my house most nights. Within a month, he had moved in completely. He said he couldn't bear to be away from me. He said my house felt more like home than anywhere he had ever lived. He said we were meant to be together. "This place has such good energy," he would say, running his hands along my grandmother's antique furniture. "I can see why she left it to you. It's perfect for raising a family." A family. That's what I wanted more than anything. Thomas seemed to want it too. He talked about our future children, about how they would play in the big backyard, about how we would fill the empty bedrooms with laughter and love. Every conversation about the future made me fall deeper in love with him. The proposal came exactly 1 year after we met. He took me back to the same coffee shop where we had first talked, got down on one knee right next to our original table, and asked me to be his wife. The ring was beautiful, expensive, everything I had dreamed of. I said yes before he even finished asking the question. "I want to give you everything," he whispered as he slipped the ring onto my finger. "I want to take care of you forever." Planning the wedding was like living in a fairy tale. Thomas insisted on paying for everything, even though I offered to help with my inheritance money. He said he wanted to spoil me, wanted our wedding to be perfect. He chose the venue, the flowers, even my dress. At the time, I thought it was romantic. Now I realize he was already taking control of everything in my life. 2 weeks before the wedding, Thomas brought up the practical matters. Insurance, bank accounts, legal documents. He said married couples needed to protect each other. needed to make sure everything was properly organized. He had forms for me to sign, papers that would add his name to my accounts, documents that would make him a co-owner of my house. "It's just a formality," he explained, spreading the papers across my kitchen table. "Married couples share everything. This just makes it official." I trusted him completely. Why wouldn't I? He was going to be my husband. We were going to spend our lives together. I signed every paper he put in front of me without reading them carefully. I was too busy being happy, too excited about our future to worry about legal details. The wedding was everything I had dreamed of. Thomas looked handsome in his expensive suit. I felt beautiful in my designer dress. Our guests seemed happy for us. But looking back now, I remember how few people were actually there for me. Most of the guests were Thomas's friends, his family, his business associates. My side of the church was nearly empty. "Don't worry about it," Thomas had said when I mentioned feeling sad about having so few people. "You have me now. You have my family. We're all the family you'll ever need." His family. That's when I first met Patricia. She arrived at our engagement party like a queen making an entrance. Perfectly dressed, perfectly polished, with a smile that never quite reached her eyes. She hugged me like we were old friends, called me daughter, told everyone how lucky Thomas was to have found such a sweet girl. "Elena is exactly what our family needs," she announced to the room. So young, so trusting, so grateful for love and guidance. At the time, I thought she was being kind. Now I know she was already sizing me up, already planning how to use my gratitude and loneliness against me. She had probably been looking for someone exactly like me for years. Someone with money but no family. Someone desperate enough for love to ignore warning signs. After the wedding, Patricia became a constant presence in our lives. She would drop by unannounced, always with some excuse about wanting to help or spend time with her new daughter-in-law. She offered to help me organize my finances, suggested I let her handle some of my paperwork since she had experience in banking. She said it would give us more time to focus on our marriage. "You're so busy with your art," she would say, gathering up bills and documents from my desk. "Let me take care of these boring details. That's what mothers are for." I was grateful for her help. I had never had a mother figure before, and Patricia seemed genuinely caring. She remembered my birthday, brought me soup when I was sick, listened when I talked about wanting children. She felt like the family I had always wanted. But now I understand that every kindness was calculated. Every helpful gesture was designed to gain more access to my life, my money, my house. While I was falling in love with having a mother figure, she was studying my weaknesses, learning how to manipulate my emotions, planning how to steal everything I owned. They had been playing a long game from the very beginning, and I had made it so easy for them. Patricia drove away from my house exactly as planned, her silver sedan disappearing around the corner, while Thomas hummed happily in the kitchen, preparing what he thought would be my last birthday lunch in my own home. If only he knew what his mother was about to discover. I had spent 3 weeks preparing for this moment, 3 weeks of careful planning, secret meetings, and setting up the perfect trap. While Thomas and Patricia thought they were manipulating me, I had been building a case that would destroy them both. The first thing Patricia would notice when she reached my house would be the locksmith's van parked in my driveway. Not just any locksmith, but Detective Rodriguez's brother-in-law, who had agreed to help with our operation. He would be sitting there in his official uniform, looking completely legitimate, ready to tell Patricia that the homeowner had already requested new locks for security reasons. But that was just the beginning of her problems. When Patricia tried to use her copied keys to enter my house, she would discover that I had already changed all the locks yesterday. The keys Thomas had secretly made copies of months ago would be completely useless. She would have to explain to the locksmith why she was trying to break into a house that wasn't hers. That's when she would probably try to call Thomas, panicking about the unexpected obstacle. But Thomas wouldn't answer his phone because he would be too busy trying to keep me distracted with birthday celebrations. Patricia would be on her own, forced to make decisions without her son's guidance. If she somehow managed to convince the locksmith to let her in, or if she found another way inside, that's when she would discover the real surprise I had prepared for her. My living room had been transformed into a gallery of evidence. Every wall was covered with photographs, documents, and printed emails that exposed their entire scheme. Pictures of Thomas with his girlfriend, copies of the forged documents they thought I had signed, bank records showing how they had been slowly stealing money from my accounts, screenshots of text messages between Thomas and Patricia discussing their plans. But the centerpiece of my display was a large poster board titled "The Complete Guide to Stealing Elena's Life." It contained a detailed timeline of their scheme, starting from the day Thomas first approached me in that coffee shop. Every lie, every manipulation, every forged signature was documented with dates, times, and evidence. Patricia would see photos of herself going through my mail when she thought I wasn't looking, security camera footage of Thomas making copies of my keys, recordings of their private conversations that I had captured using the listening devices I had hidden throughout their houses. Yes, I had been in their houses. While they were busy planning my destruction, I had been gathering evidence of their crimes. Patricia's house contained a whole filing cabinet dedicated to me, with copies of my financial records, photos of my house, and detailed notes about my daily routines. Thomas's apartment, the one he thought I didn't know about, was filled with evidence of his affair and his real plans for our marriage. The most damaging evidence would be the recordings, hours and hours of conversations where they discussed their scheme in detail. Patricia's voice explaining how she had researched my background before Thomas ever approached me. Thomas admitting that he had never loved me, that I was just a target they had selected because I was wealthy and alone. "She's perfect," Patricia's voice would say from the speakers I had set up around the room. "No family, desperate for love, and completely trusting. We can take everything from her, and she'll never see it coming. The house alone is worth $800,000, Thomas's voice would respond. "Plus her inheritance money, her art business, everything. Will be set for life." But the recording that would destroy Patricia the most was the one where she laughed about my desire to have children, where she called me pathetic for wanting a family so badly, where she and Thomas discussed how they would string me along for years, letting me hope for children while they slowly stole everything I owned. "Let her keep trying," Patricia had said in that recording. "The longer she thinks she might get pregnant, the more desperate she'll become. Desperate women make stupid decisions." That recording was playing on repeat when Patricia entered my house, her own voice, her own words, her own cruelty echoing through the rooms where she had pretended to love me like a daughter. But I wasn't finished with my surprises. Hidden cameras throughout the house were recording Patricia's reaction to discovering my evidence. Every expression of shock, every moment of panic, every attempt to destroy the evidence was being captured and streamed live to Detective Rodriguez's computer. The same technology they had planned to use against me was now being used to document their crimes. Patricia would also find a letter addressed to her, written in my handwriting, explaining exactly how long I had known about their plan, how I had been watching them, recording them, building a case against them while they thought they were manipulating me. "Dear Patricia," the letter began, "by the time you read this, you'll realize that your victim has become your hunter. Every lie you told me, every document you forged, every moment you pretended to love me while planning my destruction has been recorded and documented. You taught me that family isn't about blood or marriage. It's about loyalty and love. Since you never gave me either, you were never really my family." The letter went on to detail every piece of evidence I had gathered, every crime they had committed, every law they had broken. It explained that the police were already involved, that warrants had been issued, that their bank accounts had been frozen pending investigation. But the final paragraph was the one that would hurt Patricia the most. "You thought I was naive and trusting. You were right. I trusted you completely, loved you like the mother I never had, and would have given you anything if you had simply asked. Instead, you chose to steal from me, lie to me, and destroy me. Now you'll discover what happens when someone underestimates the woman they're trying to destroy." By now, Patricia would be frantically calling Thomas, trying to warn him that everything had gone wrong. She would be panicking, trying to figure out how to escape the trap I had spent weeks preparing. But it was already too late for both of them. The net was closing, and there was nowhere left to run. My phone buzzed with Patricia's panicked call just as Thomas was lighting the candles on my birthday cake. I watched his face change from loving husband to confused conspirator as he answered, stepping into the kitchen for privacy. But I had already placed recording devices everywhere. Every word of their conversation was being captured. "What do you mean she knows?" Thomas hissed into the phone, his voice sharp with panic. "That's impossible. She's been acting completely normal all morning." I continued sitting at the dining table, pretending to admire the flowers he had bought me while listening to his world crumble. Through the kitchen doorway, I could see him pacing, running his free hand through his hair the way he always did when he was stressed. "Calm down, Mother. Tell me exactly what you found." The silence stretched as Patricia explained what she had discovered at my house. I watched Thomas's face go pale, then red, then pale again. His expensive shirt was already showing sweat stains under his arms. "Evidence? What kind of evidence?" His voice cracked. "Photos of what? Recordings of what?" I stood up slowly, smoothing my birthday dress, and walked toward the kitchen. Thomas was so focused on his mother's panicked explanation that he didn't notice me approaching until I was standing right behind him. "Is everything okay, honey?" I asked sweetly. "You look upset." Thomas spun around, nearly dropping his phone. For a moment, his mask slipped completely, and I saw the real man underneath, the cold, calculating predator who had been hunting me for 6 years. Then he forced his fake smile back into place. "Just work stuff, sweetheart. Nothing to worry about." He tried to end the call, but I could hear Patricia's voice screaming through the speaker. "Thomas! Thomas! Are you listening? She has everything. Photos, recordings, documents. The police are coming. We need to run." I tilted my head, pretending to be confused. "Was that your mother? She sounds upset. Maybe you should put her on speaker so I can help." Thomas's hand tightened on the phone. "That's not necessary. She's just—" I reached over and pressed the speaker button before he could stop me. Patricia's panicked voice filled the kitchen. "Thomas, listen to me. Elena knows everything. She's been recording us for weeks. There are photos of you with that woman, copies of all the forged documents, recordings of our conversations. She knows about the plan to steal her house. She knows about everything." The silence that followed was deafening. Thomas stared at me with his mouth open, his phone still broadcasting his mother's frantic breathing. I smiled at him, the same sweet smile I had been giving him for 6 years. "Surprise," I said softly. Thomas dropped the phone. It clattered to the floor, but Patricia's voice kept coming through the speaker. "Thomas? Thomas, are you there? We need to leave now. The police—" "How long?" Thomas's voice was barely a whisper. "How long have you known?" "About your affair? 3 months. About the forged documents? 6 weeks. About your plan to steal my house? Almost a month." I picked up his phone and ended the call, cutting off Patricia's panicked rambling, but I've suspected something was wrong for much longer than that. Thomas backed away from me, his eyes darting toward the front door. "Elena, I can explain. This isn't what it looks like." "Really?" I pulled out my own phone and played a recording. His voice filled the kitchen, clear and unmistakable. "She's so naive. She actually believes we care about her. Poor little Elena, always so trusting, always so grateful for our love and support." Thomas's face went white. "Where did you get that?" "From your mother's house. Did you know she keeps detailed files about all your victims?" "Oh yes, I know about the others too. Margaret from Portland, Susan from Denver, Lisa from Phoenix. You and Patricia have quite a system worked out." "You don't understand," Thomas said, his voice getting desperate. "We never meant to hurt you. We just needed the money. My business is failing, and Mother's medical bills." "Stop," I held up my hand. "Just stop lying. I've heard enough lies to last a lifetime." I walked to the kitchen drawer and pulled out a thick folder. "Would you like to see what I've been working on instead of planning my birthday party? Bank records showing how you've been stealing from my accounts. Photos of you with Jennifer, your girlfriend of 8 months. Copies of the real estate documents you forged with my signature. Audio recordings of you and Patricia planning to drug me and have me declared mentally incompetent so you could take control of my assets." Thomas lunged for the folder, but I stepped back. "Don't bother. These are just copies. The originals are with my lawyer, the police, and the FBI. Did you know that financial elder abuse is a federal crime? Even though I'm only 32, the pattern of targeting vulnerable women makes it a federal case." "Elena, please." Thomas's voice broke. "I love you. I know I made mistakes, but I love you." "No, you don't." I felt surprisingly calm. "You love my house. You love my money. You love how easy I was to manipulate. But you've never loved me." My phone buzzed with a text message. I glanced at it and smiled. "That's Detective Rodriguez. Patricia has been arrested." They found her trying to destroy evidence at my house, but of course, everything was already backed up in multiple locations. Thomas made a desperate grab for my phone, but I was ready for him. I stepped aside and he stumbled, crashing into the kitchen counter. "It's over, Thomas. Your mother is in custody, your girlfriend has been questioned and is cooperating with police, and your bank accounts have been frozen. You can't do this to me." Thomas's mask finally fell away completely. "I gave you 6 years of my life. I married you. I pretended to love you." "Pretended. Thank you for finally admitting it." The front doorbell rang. Through the window, I could see police cars in my driveway. Thomas saw them too, and made a run for the back door, but I had anticipated that as well. "I wouldn't," I called after him. "Detective Martinez is waiting in the backyard." Thomas stopped, trapped. He turned back to me with pure hatred in his eyes. "You think you're so smart. You think you've won, but you'll never find anyone who loves you like I did." I laughed, a real laugh for the first time in months. "Thomas, you never loved me at all, and that's exactly why I'm going to be fine." The police knocked on the front door. I walked past my husband of 6 years, the man who had stolen my trust, my money, and my peace of mind, and went to let justice in. Detective Rodriguez stepped through my front door with 2 other officers, their presence filling my living room with an authority that made everything feel real for the first time. Thomas stood frozen in the kitchen doorway, his expensive birthday shirt now wrinkled and stained with sweat, looking nothing like the confident man who had whispered his plans to his mother just hours earlier. "Elena Martinez?" Detective Rodriguez asked, though we had been working together for weeks. "We're here to arrest Thomas Martinez and Patricia Martinez on charges of conspiracy to commit fraud, forgery, identity theft, and attempted grand larceny." "Thomas is right there," I said, pointing to my husband, who looked like he might collapse. "Patricia is already in custody at my house, I assume?" "Yes, ma'am. She's been arrested and is being processed downtown." Detective Rodriguez approached Thomas with handcuffs ready. "Thomas Martinez, you're under arrest. You have the right to remain silent." As the detective read Thomas his rights, I watched my husband's face cycle through emotions I had never seen before. Panic, rage, disbelief, and finally, a cold hatred directed entirely at me. This was the real Thomas, the man who had been hiding behind 6 years of fake smiles and false declarations of love. "This is insane!" Thomas shouted as the handcuffs clicked into place. "She's my wife. She's having some kind of breakdown. You can't believe anything she says." "Actually, we can," Detective Rodriguez replied calmly. "We have hours of recorded conversations, forged documents with your fingerprints, bank records showing unauthorized transfers, and testimony from your girlfriend Jennifer, who's been very cooperative about your plans to leave the country once you stole Mrs. Martinez's assets." Thomas's face went white. "Jennifer talked?" "She talked a lot," I said, stepping closer to him, "especially about how you promised to divorce me and marry her once you had my money. She was very upset to learn that you've done this to other women before. Apparently she thought she was special." "You destroyed everything!" Thomas screamed at me, struggling against the handcuffs. 6 years of marriage! 6 years of building a life together!" "6 years of lies," I corrected. 6 years of you and your mother planning to steal everything my grandmother worked for. 6 years of me loving people who saw me as nothing more than a target." Officer Chen stepped forward with an evidence bag. "Mrs. Martinez, we'll need the recording devices and any other evidence you've collected." I handed over the small recording device I had been wearing all morning. This captured his conversation with Patricia about changing the locks, plus his confession just now. "Everything else is already in your possession." As they prepared to take Thomas away, he turned back to me one last time. "You'll regret this, Elena. You'll spend the rest of your life alone, and you'll remember that I was the only man who ever loved you." "No, Thomas," I said quietly. "You were the only man who ever tried to destroy me. There's a difference." After they took him away, Detective Rodriguez stayed behind to wrap up the details. "The investigation will take several months, but with the evidence you've gathered, this should be a straightforward case. Both Thomas and Patricia are looking at significant prison time." "What about the other victims?" I asked. "Margaret, Susan, Lisa?" "We've contacted them all. Your evidence has helped us connect Thomas and Patricia to at least 4 other cases across 3 states. They've been running this con for over a decade, targeting women who inherited money or property and had no close family to protect them. I sat down heavily on my couch, the weight of everything finally hitting me. I can't believe I fell for it. I can't believe I was so stupid. You weren't stupid, Detective Rodriguez said firmly. You were grieving and lonely, and they exploited that. These people are professionals. They study their victims, learn their weaknesses, and use their emotions against them. The fact that you figured it out and fought back makes you incredibly strong. Over the next few hours, I gave my final statement and signed the last of the paperwork. The house felt strange and empty without Thomas's presence, but for the first time in months, it also felt peaceful. The constant tension I had been carrying, the feeling that something was wrong, had finally lifted. 3 months later, I sat in a courtroom watching Thomas and Patricia receive their sentences. Thomas got 12 years for fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. Patricia got 15 years, as the mastermind behind multiple schemes. Their lawyer had tried to argue that I had entrapped them, but the evidence was overwhelming. Jennifer, Thomas's girlfriend, received probation in exchange for her testimony. She approached me after the sentencing, tears in her eyes. "I'm so sorry," she said. "I had no idea he was married when we started dating. He told me you were divorced, that you were trying to steal his house in the settlement." "He's very good at lying," I replied. "I believed him for 6 years. How did you figure it out?" I thought about that question for a long time. Little things at first. Documents that didn't make sense. Conversations that stopped when I entered the room. But mostly, it was the feeling that the people who claimed to love me were treating me like an enemy they had to defeat. A year after their conviction, I was finally ready to move forward with my life. I had started a foundation to help women recognize and escape financial abuse, using my experience to educate others about the warning signs I had missed. The Victorian house that Thomas and Patricia had tried to steal became a safe haven for women rebuilding their lives after financial betrayal. I never remarried, but I did find love again. Real love, with a man who encouraged my independence instead of trying to control it. Someone who celebrated my strength instead of exploiting my vulnerabilities. On my 34th birthday, exactly 2 years after Thomas and Patricia's arrest, I stood in my grandmother's garden, surrounded by friends who genuinely cared about me. No fake smiles, no hidden agendas, no whispered plans to destroy me. For the first time in years, I felt truly safe. And I realized that sometimes the people who try to break us actually make us stronger than we ever imagined we could be. The house my grandmother left me was still mine. The life I had built was still mine. And the future I was creating belonged entirely to me. That was the best birthday gift of all.